Hello, and welcome to The Enthusiasm Project, Season 2, Episode 10, double digits of Season 2. My name is Tom, and this week we're going to talk about YouTube stuff and video production and whatnot, because that is what, oh my gosh, so much time is spent doing on those things. And we kind of talked about before, I was sort of flabbergasted. We don't need to rehash the whole thing, but maybe 2 weeks ago, my YouTube channel crossed the 10,000 subscriber mark, which was ultra exciting and got some like absolutely incredible feedback as part of that. And to celebrate, I made, my heartfelt thank you video, but I didn't want to just do thank you stuff. I wanted to make it more interesting than that. So I also included like a behind the scenes production process, how I make my videos start to finish. So that way I had some people actually ask, like, how do you make your videos? And I just kind of went through the whole process. But it's still, even though that ended up being a slightly longer video, so like with the thank you and that part, it was like a 20-minute video, it was still ultra condensed for YouTube. And so I wanted to sort of take a deep dive into my current production process, recognizing that it's always a work in progress and it will always change. And this is just stuff that I have learned that has worked for me over the past 2.5 years. And it's stuff that I think would be helpful to other people. And if there's any way that you can learn from my experience and cut down your own time on figuring this stuff out, I think that would be an absolutely beneficial thing. So everybody's workflows are a little bit different, and depending on the videos you make and all that. So this is just from my specific point of view. And it kind of, before I can even jump into what that means, I sort of need to go back into like why I wanted to start a channel in the first place. And a big reason was just, I don't know why. I had watched so many channels for so long and like was so interested in how people started YouTube channels, but just for some reason thought it was impossible. Like it couldn't possibly just be a button you click for free and then you have this thing and access to this stuff. What? That's crazy. But that is all that it was. And then beyond that, it was kind of like, well, what do I actually make these videos about? Like, what should this thing be that somebody would want to watch? And a big part of that was prior to starting my channel in 2017 from I started teaching digital media specifically in 2012, and where like digital media was my full-time job. And then I started my channel in 2017. So there was that time, that 5-year period, 4.5-year period was a lot of me not making videos. It was a lot of my excuse was just telling my students, because they would ask. I teach high school kids. They're super curious about what you're doing too. And I'm assigning all these projects and critiquing them. And then they're like, well, Mr. Buck, like, what are you working on? And my default go-to answer was, oh, I help you with your projects. Like, I don't have time to be working on my own stuff. Are you serious? And just kind of like shying away from it. But I always felt like I should be making my own stuff and I want to make my own stuff. And so maybe like, I don't know, twice a year, I'd make a video, maybe just some random like personal thing that nobody would ever see. Just like, I'm going to get this footage and edit together like a little montage for literally no reason. Or it would be, I might do something like go do, I don't know, like a football or a pep rally, like coverage thing for, the school that I was working at, and just sort of like share that on the school's Vimeo page. But that was kind of it. And maybe do that once or twice a year. And then usually once or twice a year, I would also work with like either the school or the school district to produce some projects, which might be like documentary style things, like a lot of like corporate style documentaries. It's a public school district. They can't like, they got to kind of go straight down the middle. It has to be very vanilla and very plain because, it's a public school district. And so we did this one thing, which was, it was actually pretty funny. The school district wanted to promote like arts at the different schools. And so, oh man, this was so, my students at the time were producing a podcast, which for the district. So like the district's communication officer would come in every week and record a podcast with like a guest from the district, and they talk about things. It was really cool. We started doing this in like, I don't know, maybe 2014, 2015. And I think that program at my old school is still producing this podcast to this day. So it was like this awesome experience. And because of that, that really opened the door for like, hey, these students are really capable. This program's really cool. And it just sort of became like that school district's PR department in a way. And they wanted to do a promotion for an upcoming school year for like, hey, look at all the arts programs in these school districts. This school has these programs, this school has this has that. And they asked my students and I to sort of put it together, and like, we'll get you footage and photos from all the different programs. So I got all these like super low res, very pixelated, not great photos that we had to turn into like this montagey thing. And then there was a script. We were trying to do a voiceover, and it was something like the school district, someone from the district was going to do it, and it fell through. And then like a student was going to do it, but the voiceover, just like a 16, 17-year-old just couldn't kind of grasp the tone of the voiceover. And it was literally just like, the school district offers these programs, electrical, and I guess that's not an arts program, electrical engineering, but they offer like singing and performing over here and digital media over here and this and that over there, and get this certification through this program over here. And it was like the first day of summer vacation, and I got a call from someone at the district that was like, we need this thing, because they wanted to play it in movie theaters, like as the ads that run before the trailers, and they needed a voiceover. And I was just like, oh, okay. And they're like, can you just do this voiceover? It's like, okay. And so I like recorded it just in a bedroom, before any YouTube stuff. So it was like bizarre to me to be recording something like that in a room in my house. And I just recorded, this little clip, put it on the video, sent it over. And then for like 6 months or more, it was the thing that was in the movie theater before the movies. And there was one time I remember walking into a movie theater and hearing my voice coming over the speakers and just like turning around and walking out, because I know nobody knew that it was me. Of course, like, who would even care? But it was just like that was just such an uncomfortable feeling. But those were basically the kinds of projects, and we would like update that promo every year. And then even when I switched to my current school in a different district, it was kind of the same thing, because people knew what I had done at the previous school. So immediately, my program and my students and I were tapped to do like, hey, we need a documentary about technology in the district. We need to do a historical piece on this. And it was just a lot of basically corporate promotional style pieces. And those are really fun. Like it's not that those are not fun to do. And, it's great learning experience for kids and everything. But it definitely wasn't like super creatively fulfilling. And the process had just gotten so unwieldy, because there's so many layers of approval, and there's just so many ideas, and you have to plan for this, and we're going to film on this day. It's almost like it becomes like an actual film production in a way. And, the gestation period or whatever is like 4 months on something like that, or more even, where it might be even like a huge chunk of an entire school year to just get this one thing produced and put together that can go out into the world. And that I found deeply unsatisfying, where it's like, not only am I sick and tired of this thing at that point, but you're putting in all this work, and like you don't get to see there's no end result for so long. It's just so frustrating. And then when the thing comes out, even though it looks good and it sounds good and it does everything that it needed to do, it's not exactly like creatively fulfilling. You're not like, wow, look at like this thing I'm trying to communicate, and look at this purpose and all this kind of stuff. And it just, that was sort of my experience with videos for the past few years before I had started my YouTube channel. And so when I started the channel, some of the things I did were just kind of unwieldy. Like the very first video that I made was like how to get your commercial drone license. And that, I didn't know, I would just sort of approach it like one of these videos. I mean, I spent all kinds of time, which is good, researching the information, because that had really specific info that I needed to communicate to people. And I wrote out this long script, and I literally spent like a day and a half rehearsing the script, because this was over summer vacation. I spent hours one morning setting up this lighting setup. And if you go watch that video, it's a good video. People still watch it because it's still useful, relevant information. It looks fine. It sounds fine, but it's not like amazing or anything. It's just like the amount of time put into it, it just doesn't add up to what you would expect. But it was still fun. And I'm glad I got to make that video. And I was excited because I was like, oh, I started this YouTube channel. Like I created an account. What can I put on it? here's like an actual video with a purpose that I think would be helpful to other people and is interesting to me. And I had just gone through that whole process. And then after that, I was just sort of experimenting a little bit. And what I ended up doing was I recognized that I had this issue with having made all those corporate style videos for so long. I had completely lost my perspective and my like creative voice. And because everything was just so down the middle with no point of view behind it. And that was really scary to me, that even when I wanted to make something of my own, I couldn't really put it together. Like I couldn't really give it a voice, give it a personality, give it a style like I wanted. And so I actively wanted to use the YouTube channel as a way of figuring out how to do that and how to bring that voice back and that personality back, and learn that that's an okay thing to do, and that's fine. And even still, like I never like swear on my channel or anything, which is fine. Like I wouldn't really want to do that anyway, but there's no reason not to. Like it's completely okay. But there's still things that I'm like not comfortable doing. But you can obviously have personality without profanity. But anyway, that was kind of the impetus there. And what I learned was like this production process that I had been used to through work was not working for YouTube, and it was not working for me. And so even though I really did care about image quality, I cared about audio and lighting and all that stuff, I was finding those to be hangups, especially because I was a little bit limited in my equipment at the time. And so I bought a Sony RX100, like a little point and shoot camera. It's a really popular model of Sony camera, and it's a great camera. And literally other than like the drone video, the first, 50 or more videos on my channel, like all of my 30-day vlogs pretty much like are filmed almost exclusively with that camera, that little point and shoot camera. And it was just about like, I don't want to plug in a microphone. I don't want to set up specific lighting. Like I just want to go with it and make things as quickly as possible. And when Heather pushed me to do the 30-day upload challenge, I mean, that was, literally I'm going to work, then I'm also trying to film something and edit it and upload it all in a day, every day for 30 days. Like there's no time for a crazy production process. So it just became so quick. And by the end of that 30 days, it had just gotten so fast that I really kind of like, in terms of the production, I got out of that habit that I had been in through the school projects or the work projects of just things taking forever. And that was so much more fulfilling to like wake up in the morning and just know I'm going to have a video uploaded tonight, and I have no idea what that's going to be. And then throughout the day, figure out like, this is what I'm going to film, this is what I'm going to talk about, then edit it together, upload it, and get it out there. It was just such a like immediate gratification thing that just switched everything around and like built these muscles that I didn't have before. And then finally after that, when I wanted to get like the 6D Mark II, which, had a flip out screen and autofocus, and I was like, this is going to be great for a one-person YouTube channel situation. Then I kind of leaned more into, okay, let's not just make stuff edited well, and, let's really like spend time into kind of bring the production back. Like let's focus on lighting a little bit. Let's focus on better sound and, just all the stuff, the whole production value of it. But trying to do so in a way that wasn't going to totally derail my, now quicker and more efficient approach. But then even beyond that, I started getting to a point where I was almost scared for a while of maybe like 6 months or more I spent of almost being scared of strategy on my channel, because I wanted it to be authentic. I didn't want it to be ultra controlled like those work projects were. And I just felt like, well, if I'm strategizing with it, then that takes away from the authenticity, which is completely not true, by the way. So like it's totally okay to have a strategy and have a purpose and to, admit that those things matter. I was just being dumb. And anyway, it took a while to figure that out. So long story long, that's kind of where the channel came from. So I went from having too much of an unwieldy production process to like zero, like the tiniest nothing production process you can think of, and then finding sort of a happy medium in between those where I could create good looking, good quality work without it taking 4 months and without it just becoming, ridiculous. So that's what I want to dive into today, basically. And so that process for me evolved organically. And I think for everybody, to a certain extent, it has to, because it depends on what you're trying to communicate, what your schedule is, what your situation is, what equipment you have. All those things play into it. But my general thing, essentially, I learned that taking it seriously and developing a strategy was a huge step forward. And that even in doing that, I could maintain authenticity. And in fact, if I did it well, I could do a better job of communicating things authentically and effectively. So pretty much, like, it's no huge secret. I just break everything down like you would anything into 3 steps or 3 sections, which is pre-production, production, post-production. That's, how I teach stuff in my classes. Those are essentially the 3 phases of any, giant Hollywood blockbuster, but it can also be the 3 phases of your YouTube video and or pretty much anything. And so pre-production, of course, tends to be, at least in my point of view, the least fun, but probably the most beneficial, in that, you just kind of want, like right now, my Canon EOS R is sitting next to my computer as I'm recording this, and it looks so cool, and I just want to like pick it up and go film stuff with it or take photos with it. And, there's nothing wrong with that. But that's the fun, that's the hands-on, the fun getting into it stuff. But when you're trying to make a video with a specific purpose, just doing that usually doesn't work out very well. You need to have some kind of a plan and some kind of a method. And the more you spend on your pre-production, the easier everything else becomes, and the quicker it becomes. And then everything just, it's when it feels like, it's almost like the universe is putting the video together instead of you, because everything just falls into place. Like the shots line up and the edit comes together, and it just comes out, it's like effortless in a way, but it's only effortless because you put in the extra effort in the pre-production. And basically my pre-production hinges around my notebook that I carry around with me, and I just scribble all my notes and all my things in it. And that has become kind of like the cornerstone of my, and I mean, this is not anything new if you've listened to the podcast before, but that little notebook of just keeping ideas, I just have one page is one idea, and I just sort of write out all the main elements to it. I try to keep an eye out for what the title might be, the hook might be. I sometimes sketch out thumbnail ideas. That's where I start crafting a shot list. That's where I put together a checklist of, very simple things. Take a thumbnail, get captions, do an end screen. If it's a product-based thing, add in the affiliate link for that, and just sort of all the organizational stuff. From there, it sometimes turns into a script. So if I decide that I want to, if it's a really technical thing, especially like a review on a camera or computer or something, then I'll usually start typing that up in my computer, just in the Notes app on Mac OS. And sometimes that just, by the time I type everything out in a way that makes sense, it has just become a script. And if it's a really detailed video, then I'll put that in the teleprompter and use that to kind of make the process simpler. I did make a video all about how the teleprompter fits into my workflow, and it's great. It's not something to use on every single video, but it is kind of magical when it works really well. And that's really important. The Notes app on Mac OS is amazing. Heather's the one that kind of showed me that a few years ago. I always ignored it because I was like, who cares about notes? Like, I have Pages, I have Google Docs. Like, why would I want some cheesy little Notes app? But Notes is so powerful because it's so easy. It's so fast. It takes up no, hardware power or anything, on CPU power on your computer, so you can have everything else going and notes can be there, but it also just effortlessly syncs across everything, multiple computers, multiple, phones, tablets, whatever. Like anytime I have, something that I need to add into a description or whatever, I can just pop it up on any of those devices, add to it, and it'll show up when I'm ready to actually start recording. So the Notes app has been huge. That's also where I just keep my video description template that has all my equipment links and channel descriptions and things in it. It's just sort of there, and I just change out the top part for every video. So the Notes app, hugely beneficial. I have notes. In fact, I have it open right in front of me right now because the note document I'm looking at is podcast descriptions, and I have some bullet points listed that I want to talk about in podcasts. And then I have a video descriptions note where I talk about all my videos. I have media kit where every month the things I want to change in my media kit, and then, have had an old video idea thing, but that's dead. Because I just went to the notebook. But anyway, I just have different little notes documents for all of these things, and it's really helpful. Sometimes, though, it doesn't even get to that point. It doesn't even leave the notebook, because once I have that, I feel like it's outlined enough, especially if it's something that I'm really well versed and familiar with. I feel like I don't need a specific script. So then I just sort of go with that and just essentially use my lines in the notebook as my bullet points. But that also is, like I said, my shot list and my to-do list. So it's something that just sort of sticks with me through the production process. Sometimes I'll have to do scheduling stuff. I haven't had to do that so much, but if I'm doing something like a drone-based video, I know I'm going to need to go out and film some drone footage. So when am I going to go? Where am I going to go? You start paying attention to the weather, the lighting. Do I need to go later in the day when it's more golden hour? Do I need to go, if I'm doing something with an ND filter and I want to go outside, I kind of want that harsh midday lighting. So that way it's like the worst possible lighting conditions and you can see how these filters react. So it sort of depends on the video. I haven't been doing as much of that stuff lately, but if it's something that calls for it, then that is more of a scheduling thing. Otherwise, I kind of just know, like, I usually just pick, it's either Saturday or maybe like a Wednesday or Thursday throughout the week that I'll film that part of my video. And I just sort of have that, that basic scheduling is kind of built in there too. And the more time that I spend on that, which isn't even that much time, honestly, the better everything else goes, because then I jump straight into the actual production process, which for a typical video consists of talking head and B-roll. So it's usually me at the desk, talking and explaining things, and then it's all the supplemental footage, all the B-roll footage that I'm shooting with that I'm using to not accommodate, but better explain the concepts that I'm trying to talk about. So if I talk about, this camera lens that I'm using is the blah blah blah, then I like to show a close-up, very nice, beautiful shot of the lens where you can see the little numbers of the focal range and the aperture and all that kind of stuff. So it's just backing up exactly what I'm talking about. If I say this camera produces super sharp images and I want to go take an image that is super sharp, and that might mean that I need to go again outside, go somewhere else to film. Sometimes if I know that we're going to an event or something, then I'll kind of think like, oh, should I, like we just went to an arts festival last weekend and I was like, oh, I'm not currently working on this video, but I know there's a camera comparison I want to do. So I'm going to take both those cameras and just film side-by-side footage at this festival. And it may or may not be helpful when the actual video comes out. So those kinds of things play into, the pre-production and production process for me. But anyway, it's time to film production stuff. So I set up my room. I've done a good job, I think, of trying to eliminate friction. So even though I like to be very organized and put my cameras and my lenses away when I'm done filming, and then sometimes it's dumb because I just turn around and pull them right back out and get things going, I try to reduce friction as much as possible so I can walk in. It's a few buttons to turn on all the lights. The mic stand is ready to go. The cameras, I know exactly what lens, what gear, my tripod with my sliders just right there by the desk. So I can set everything up and have it looking good pretty quickly, which is very, very helpful. And then I always do the talking part first, because I never know how long that's going to take. And that's always the most pressure. That's where it's like, I want to look nice. I want to communicate things effectively. I always make the mistake of like, I'm going to eat lunch and then record my video. And then I'm like super burpy halfway through it. And that causes a lot of problems that I need to cut out. So, that's just the part. Once that's done and I know like I'm done being on camera and my voice is done being recorded, then it's just like, I just go put on pajamas or whatever and film some B-roll and be all comfortable. But that talking head part's really important in making sure that it looks good, that it sounds good, that it hits all the points, and that it's in focus and all these kinds of things. And then once that's done, then I jump into B-roll. I usually have sort of my like shot list. Sometimes I'll even listen back to the video I recorded and just sort of go through and hear myself say like a specific feature, a whatever, a certain quality of this thing or how to do something. And I'll know I need to show that exact thing. And then other times it's just sort of by my gut, like I just want a cool shot of this, or this looks neat, or I try to shoot more B-roll than I'll need, because I love having the problem of editing and going like, oh my gosh, like I have all these shots that I really like and there's just not room for all of them. So I have to like pick my favorite of my favorites And I think that helps the overall quality go up, as opposed to like, I ran out, so I'm going to use the same shot 3 times, or I'm just not going to have a B-roll clip here, or I'm going to use something that's like kind of crappy, but it's the only thing that's there. I think, filming more than you need can be really helpful to an extent. Don't film, 8 hours of B-roll footage that you have to deal with, but a little bit more can be super helpful. And then I also take a thumbnail in that part of it, which usually comes as I'm filming B-roll. That's usually when I'll discover something that looks cool, and I'll like, it'll be something about the lighting or the angle or whatever. I'm like, this looks really cool, and that's usually when I start playing around with the thumbnail. So I throw the camera into photo mode, start taking some pictures. I've been trying more and more lately to be a bit more experimental with like angles and lighting in thumbnails, because your thumbnail really is, it's just so important to getting the shot, or not to getting the shot. What the heck was I even talking about? It's important to getting people to give your video a shot by actually clicking on it and watching it. And I mean, it's completely crazy. One of my first videos, which is now I think like my fourth most popular video on my channel, is one I did a long time ago. And literally the video took like an hour from start to finish. I just explained how I do simple animated titles using Procreate and Final Cut. And I made that video real quick. It was one of my 30-day videos, actually. So it was like real quick. And it went up, and, the channel was really small at the time, so it didn't matter. Actually, I'll look at it right now. Because it went up and, no one really watched it. And about 6 months later, it had like 130 views, which at that time I was very psyched if any videos ever cracked triple digits. So 100 views or more, I was just like happy as could be that I was looking at it, and the thumbnail I had used was just a screenshot I took from the video. And I was like, like, I thought it was good at the time. I thought it was, it's fine. But then looking at it, I was like, this doesn't look that interesting. And so I just took I was working on a different video about the iPad, and I just took a different photo of like, it's kind of a cool close-up of like the Apple Pencil drawing on the tablet screen itself. And you can see like my hand holding the pencil. It's very close up. You can see a line being drawn. The lighting is really cool because the iPad screen is providing this like soft underneath lighting. And I just changed that thumbnail, and immediately, within 2 weeks, that video went from 130 views to 20,000 views and became by far my most popular video. And now currently it's sitting at 55,000 views. So it didn't, it went up, and then it's just sort of been like steadily chugging along ever since. I can click on the analytics for it and see. So, oh, wow, okay. So even in the last 28 days, it's gotten 1.3 thousand views, 7 new subscribers. So it's still chugging along even a couple years later and getting things done. And I didn't change anything else. I didn't change the description, the title, anything, literally just the thumbnail. And that happened. And that really kind of taught me that your thumbnail is important. And when I stopped seeing it as a burden and I started seeing it more as like a chance to do a fun little graphic design project, it started being a lot more fun for me to make the thumbnails and to be experimental with them. And there were still times, even when I knew that I failed to do it, and I would like go to edit and I'd be like, oh crap, I didn't take a thumbnail, and like all the lights are turned off. This sucks. But now it's baked into the process where like I know it's like muscle memory. Like I have to take a thumbnail, take lots of photos, and then I put those in Lightroom, find the best ones, and then I throw them into Photoshop where I add in like my hand-drawn titles and things on top of them. And so that's essentially the production process, getting the talking head footage, the B-roll, and the thumbnail image. And once I have all those elements together, then it's time to edit and go into post-production. And that process for me is just centered around Final Cut Pro. I edit everything off an external hard drive, so that way it's not sitting on my computer and slowing things down. And I just build the project starting with the talking head footage. So I put those clips in there. Sometimes it's 1 or 2. It's usually somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes unedited of just me talking. And I do some basic color grading, very, very basic, like exposure, increase the blacks a little bit, increase the whites a little bit, just sort of add some contrast. That's usually kind of it. Then I play with the sound, make sure the sound is good. And then once I do that, I go through and I just start cutting up the talking head part. I get rid of the mistakes, cut out the awkward pauses, cut out the unnecessary things. There's so many times in my videos where I just go in a direction that video doesn't need to go in at all. And so like, why am I even talking about this here? Just cut it out. And it's like sometimes minutes and minutes. So then it gets cut down, usually somewhere between maybe, I don't know, 6 and 12 minutes. It sort of seems to be where the average video length is. And then I start throwing on the B-roll clips. So I usually know based on what I'm saying, like where some specific shots need to go. Again, because I plan that out and film those shots specifically. And then when I've got all those extra shots, I play around with that and, where else could I pepper in footage? So it's almost like my video timeline now is 2 layers. The first layer is me, and then the layer above it is all those other clips. Sometimes I'll need to add in titles on top of that I make in Procreate. So I'm doing like a camera comparison or something. I'll always have a title on screen that shows like what equipment is being used in each shot so people know. Or if I'm doing like a microphone comparison, I'll label which microphone is you're listening to as it's happening. And then it's music. I hate finding music. I mean, I love, it's like a love-hate thing. I love the music sites. Like everything I use is either Artlist or Epidemic. And the sites are great. It's just like the process of trying to find the song that fits in the background can sometimes, it just sometimes can take forever. And depending on the video, I might find a song early if I want to like do a little montage-y sequence that's cut to the music. But if it's just regular background songs, just try to find something that sounds good at a low volume. So it's not just that like the song sounds good, but I've noticed at a low volume, sometimes when it's background music, it's like the snare is what comes in most dominantly. And so you don't really hear the cool little funky groove. You just hear like, and I've had people in a couple of videos go like, please turn that drum thing off in the background. And I didn't know what they were talking about. And my drum set is usually in the background of my videos. And I was like, are my drums making a noise? Like what do they mean? And then I realized, oh, you mean the background music because you can't hear the song. You just hear this weird ticking from the snare. So finding a song that works, mixing it in a way that's beneficial and not detrimental to the overall video sometimes can be a huge challenge. And then, of course, rewatching it a few times to make sure everything's good. Definitely a good idea to, once it's exported, rewatch the whole thing and just make sure. Heather got this in this situation like a few months ago. Luckily, I think it's been fixed, but she would add in titles with Final Cut, and when she exported, the titles would just disappear, or like only one letter would export instead of the whole title. So when you watch the video in Final Cut, everything is fine. When it exports, titles are missing. It's just like, that sucks. And it's really annoying. And those are things you don't catch if you don't actually watch your entire video start to finish once it's exported. So that's always a good thing to do. But it doesn't have to be just a total like, at that point, if you're like, it's another 12-minute video, I've already watched it 4 times, and I got to sit here for another 12 minutes. Sometimes you can just want to get the thing uploaded. But what I have found is a good idea is that's a good point to kind of sit and start doing my time markers. So what I learned, I have 2 of my least favorite type of comments to get, and I'll just admit them. The first one is new. So this is one that just happened yesterday, actually. It was on my Artlist versus Epidemic video. Somebody left a comment. So that video is comparing royalty-free music sites, right? I put together this video. I worked really hard on it. It's great. I also have affiliate links to both of those sites, which is not, I didn't even have an Epidemic one when I made the video, and I don't know when I got my Artlist one. That's not why I made the video, but those links are there now. And that's like great. Like that's actually a significant chunk of monthly channel revenue comes from those 2 affiliate programs. And that's cool, and I love it. And someone shows up in my comment section yesterday and just goes like, hey guys, if anyone wants to sign up for one of these services, do me a favor and use this link. And I was like, you get out of here with that. Are you kidding me? You're going to roll up in my video and drop your affiliate link? No, you go make your own thing and have people subscribe. That just bothered me so much. And it's the dumbest thing in the world, but it was just like, how annoying and how irritating is that? So that's one of my least favorite comments. And the other one, drives me crazy is video starts at 3:23 or whatever, where people feel like you're not getting straight to the point. They'll just jump to like, okay, they make the first point here. So then in a comment, they'll just say video starts here. And it's like, okay, I know that there are channels where people take forever to get to the point. And that can be annoying if it's just, you came for quick 2-minute tutorial on how to convert a file with a piece of software, and you have to listen to this guy's merch pitch, Squarespace ad, vlog update before they spend 30 seconds explaining the thing and then reminding you to subscribe 8,000 times. Like, I know that very stereotypical formula is annoying, but I don't make those kinds of videos. Heather doesn't make those kinds of videos. Our friends don't make those kinds of videos, and we still get those same video starts at 4:28 comments. And, it's just people being people, and it's this weird thing on YouTube where it's like, and I struggle with this a lot, where you want to be concise and get straight to the point, but at the same time, if you're trying to build a channel that's growing, you do need to incorporate personality, and people are going to connect with you when they know a little bit more about you, and you can have your humor show up or your background story be a part of it or whatever, and that takes a little bit of time. So I have found that a good way to balance it out is to just myself put in the time markers, both in the video description and in a pinned comment right under the video. So it's literally like I do time markers. I always do 000, like the start of the video is, overview of product or whatever, basic features, why you need this thing. So that way people I specifically make it clear that like the beginning of this video is part of the video. And I usually just jump straight into it anyway. And then I just, as I'm watching that final version of the video, I just sort of mark all the different segments so I can add those in. I usually try to find, maybe 5 or 6 different points, sections. It changes for every video, but I try to find different things to point out so that way people can see it, skip through it. I feel like that gives me the freedom to sort of go in my own direction as much as I want, but I can also then bring it, I can do that because I know if somebody's really interested in a specific thing, I'm also telling them, look, if you want to not hear me talk about this, you can just jump straight to the thing that you need right here, and I'll be the one to tell you where that is, not some random person who isn't the person that put the time and energy into making this video in the first place. So anyway, that's kind of like the final phase, and then it's uploading, which hopefully at this point I've got my thumbnail made, so upload that while the video is uploading, do the description, figure out some tags, which I know people say tags aren't as important anymore, but you still want to use some of them. Probably don't burn a bunch of hours researching your tags, but why not try to just help YouTube or viewers or whoever understand exactly what the video is about. And that's it. And then I do get captions. Once the video's uploaded, I keep it unlisted. Then while it's unlisted, I go to rev.com, which just sounds like an ad and it's not. And I order captions, which is usually like $1 a minute, sometimes maybe $1.25 a minute. And they deliver captions usually pretty fast, always within 24 hours, but sometimes within like 4 hours, the caption file will be there. They upload it automatically to the video. Once the caption file is uploaded, then I schedule the video. So if it's this Thursday's video, then I'll schedule it for this Thursday. If it's next week, whatever. And then I celebrate and I get really happy because the video's done and I feel really good. And I usually take my extra thumbnail photos, like the ones from different angles that I end up not using, and I save those for social media later. So if a video comes out and I want to tell people on Instagram about it, I have a cool different photo that's not just the thumbnail, and I can share that and talk about the video. So even those photos I don't end up using, I still save them because if I like them, they can probably have a use later, and that's cool. And I guess that's the whole process pretty much from start to finish. And that same structure, just knowing like it gets so ingrained after a while that it just becomes really efficient, and you can expand it or shrink it as much as you want. So you can do that in something that's like, I'm going to make a video this afternoon, and between 1 p.m. and 6 p.m. I'm going to film and edit an entire thing. Or you can extend it out and be like, I'm going to work on something for a couple weeks or longer or whatever. and really spend some time to dig into it, but it's still that same basic process, and really going all the way back to the beginning, the planning, the initial vision. The more time spent on that, the better the end result. So that should be, I feel like I'm leaving out something important, but I mean, that's pretty much everything. Of course, like, just let me know if you have a question about some part of the production process or something I didn't cover clearly. Just reach out, let me know. And then, of course, I am happy to answer that for you as best I can. All right, before we go, it's time for that wonderful unsponsored segment, Gear of the Week, where I talk about something that is really like, not just something I like, but something specifically in the last week that has just like blown me away with how great it is. And this week, it's usually like camera, like this camera, this lens or whatever. This week, going in a very semi-different direction. Lap desks? Like those things that have like a hard surface and then usually like a cushion underneath. So I got this lap desk that is amazing. And there's a bunch of them. You can find them at like stores. You can find them online. I just went to Amazon and searched through like the reviews to find what I thought would be the best one for me. Because usually I edit my videos and do all that work either at our kitchen table or our kitchen counter, which is comfy, but sometimes you just want to like relax on the couch or whatever. But it is not good for your computer to just be like resting on a pillow or something and getting all hot, and it's not good. So I wanted to take care of my brand new beautiful MacBook and not do that to it. So I looked into these lap desks and I found this one that's like, it's so good. It has like this bamboo wood top, which is very pretty. It has a bluish tealish cushion, which again, it's like my perfect favorite colors. And that's all that it is, but it's so comfortable. It's like shaped and positioned and like cushioned perfectly. It's just big enough for the MacBook and maybe like a little extra if I need to set like my hard drive down or something. It's like perfect for that. And it's such a game changer. I'll put a link to the exact one that I got in the show notes so you can kind of find it and see if that's like, just see what I'm talking about. There's other varieties of it, but this one is just like, it's so nice to be able to just sit down and like do actual work while being like comfortable on the couch. And I love it. And it's like one of my favorite things to do. I was doing my taxes the other night. I was so happy to just be on the couch with my lap desk doing taxes. And then Heather tried it out and she was like, oh, there's no way I could get one of these. And I was like, why do you not like it? And she's like, because I would just be on the couch all the time, and I don't need to be on the couch all the time. So she had to protect herself by not getting one because it was so good. So that has been the thing in the last like maybe 2 weeks that has just changed my entire workflow because it made me so much more comfortable. And the more that I can be comfy with that editing process, the better. So that is my gear of the week. Lap desk from Amazon. If you got any questions or anything you want to reach out to, please feel free to always reach out to me at SoDarnTom on all the things, or tom@enthusiasmproject.com. And of course, please feel free to go to anchor.fm/enthusiasm and click the little link that says leave voice message. And then you can leave me a message with your beautiful voice that I can include as part of a future episode. And I would love to have you as a part of this episode. So if you have something you want to share, something you want to respond to, if you have a tip or trick related to anything we talked about today and you want to like share that, I would love to let that happen. So reach out. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening. I have been Tom. This has been fun, and I will see you next week. I can't get my song to play. There it is.